program. So next item on the agenda is our keynote speaker, but I would like to introduce Dr. Ram de la Rosa, or Associate Director in Online Education, to share some words on behalf of the speaker today.
Hi, everybody. I'm here to our keynote speaker, Dr. Darcy Hardy, and we're happy to have her here. And she is the Associate Vice President for Strategy and Transformation at Blackboard, Inc. Prior to her position at Blackboard, she served 25 years in higher education, most recently serving as Assistant Vice Provost for Technology Education Initiatives at the University of Texas, San Antonio. Dr. Hardy also served as Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at the University of Texas System and Executive Director for the UT Telecampus. Dr. Hardy was inducted into the USDLA Hall of Fame in 2009 and the Texas Distance Learning Hall of Fame in 2006. She has received the WCET Richard Johnson's Award in 2005. Dr. Hardy has written many publications and served on and continues to serve on various editorial and advisory boards and has delivered hundreds of presentations, keynotes, and workshops on distance education, online learning, and leadership. Please help me welcome Dr. Hardy to the podium.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Is the mic on? Yes. Okay, perfect. Screen come up? Okay. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you will continue to enjoy your lunch. Don't stop on my behalf because I certainly wouldn't stop if I were sitting where you are. It's really, really nice to be on this campus. And as a matter of fact, the picture that Francisco used was actually 2005. And when I saw it, I really have changed my hairstyle a couple of times since then. It's been short and it's been long again. But I told him, go ahead and use that one because I really like it. But just to give you an idea, this was my reading material on the flight down here yesterday. This is the AARP magazine, which is actually one of my favorite magazines. I know many of you in this room are not eligible to be part of AARP, but for those of you that are, I'm sure you have seen this great cover of John Goodman and Roseanne Barr. It's a great article. I can vouch for that. So, when I was, the last time I was here officially with UT, it was part of the UT Telecampus. How many of you remember the Telecampus? Anybody? There's a few of you. I would say the UT Telecampus was one of the more innovative online initiatives of the time in 96, 97, 98, 2000. It was the entity that organized collaborative degree programs and opportunities for online learning across the entire UT system. UT Brownsville, UT Pan American were a big part of that. And so I spent some time at these campuses when I was in that capacity at UT System. I actually shared with Francisco that I remember one year in the early 2000s when we had a conference here called the Innovations in Online Learning Conference. We hosted it here at Brownsville. And for anyone else who was there, you may remember the reception where they served very strong margaritas. I know members of my staff, certainly not anybody who was actually, on campus, but members of my staff, including one of my staff who's a good 12 years older than I am, accidentally fell in the pool with their clothes on after the reception. So a lot of good memories from being on campus. And I think Francisco told me the hotel is no longer even here. So I don't know if that's because of us or because of, which hotel was it? Fort Brown. The Fort Brown, yes, I think we destroyed it at the time. Anyway, I'm glad to be welcomed back to campus. I want to talk with you today about innovation, and I'm going to use some examples. I want to talk about what innovation looks like, And I'm going to start with the, the definition itself. I think I am. Oh, I guess you have to turn it on. So, innovation is one of those terms that concerns me, just like transformation, just like thought leadership. What's another one? Premier. These are terms that people use a lot. They actually get overused. And many times they're being used in the wrong context. So we want to make sure that in this setting today, we're going to talk about innovation as it relates to the introduction of something new, a new idea, method, or device. Now, I also am a firm believer that just because you say something is innovative doesn't make it so. Just like you can't, I'm in the USDLA, the U.S. Distance Learning Association, and I literally made them remove the term the premier organization. I'm like, we have no evidence that we are the premier anything. But yet people use terms like innovation, premier. Sometimes I'm called a thought leader. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't even know what that means. I'm not leading anyone with my thoughts. But thought leadership is, especially in the corporate world, that's a big buzzword, thought leadership. So as we're going through this, be thinking in terms of innovation is a term that means something is new, something that is exciting, could be a device. It was first used in print, this term, in the 15th century. Okay, so that's 6 centuries ago, and we still misuse it. So let's try to make an effort today that we're going to go forward with using the term innovation in the right way, like you are for this particular meeting. So with that, let me, oh, you can do that for me. Let's think about innovation. Here's a definition for you. So what I want you to get out of that is it starts with an idea. How many of you have had an idea about something that you think would be really cool? Have you ever had an idea? Okay. How many of you have had, hi. Hi. How many of you have had an idea that you thought about, you really didn't have a way to follow through with it, right? How many of you have watched the shopping network or seen an ad on HEB as seen on TV and seen some kind of product and gone, I thought of that 5 years ago, or I thought of that 10 years ago. But look what happened. Somebody took that idea, they went into a creative mode, then they had it validated, and it became innovation. So with that, let's think about what does, oh, sorry, I'm getting mixed up with all my contraptions. What does innovation actually look like? How many of you have had this ice cream? How many of you have not? Oh my God. Run right now to HEB because this ice cream is phenomenal. It's called Halo Top. Halo Top ice cream, for a pint of this ice cream, the maximum calories is 360. And most of them run around 240, 280 for the pint of ice cream. My favorites are vanilla bean and sea salt caramel. Now, this has been an amazing innovation in my house because my husband has a gigantic sweet tooth. And he pretty much lives on HEB's no sugar added fudgesicles. He now has something else. Halo Top uses stevia, it uses sugar cane, and uses alcohol sugar. So it's still not the most healthy thing, but it's low calorie because it's low sugar. One of their taglines is, go ahead, eat the whole pint. You know, we don't really want to do that. And you know, one of the things about innovation is that you are either doing it to make money or you're doing it for the better of society, humanity, and so forth, or both. These guys clearly are going for the money. Now, this innovation has increased their sales by 2,500% in a year. 2,500%. They are more popular than Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry's. So be sure and contribute to that growth by going to HEB and trying it. That is innovation. And it has been, somebody created it and somebody validated it. And it became what it is now. Here's another innovation. Anybody ever seen a flux light? Oh, I need my phone. Can you have my phone? So this is a flux light. And I had a friend of mine tell me that I had to get one because they are so cool. This is why I needed a lamp. I told Francisco I need a lamp. He's like, why do you need a lamp? I'm like, so a flux light is another innovation. Can you take the light down for me? That button. Now, do you know what this light does? Can everybody see that it's kind of red? Okay, now what color is it? And now what color is it? And I can go into any part of the color wheel and this lamp will turn that color. That's amazing that I can do that from my phone. Now, I don't know where in the hell to put this in my house. I mean, you could put it in the bedroom and go for the mood setting, which my children are 30 and 31 years old. I don't need mood setting anymore. You can also, you know, it's a bright, cheery day, so I can go with a yellow and an orange. But do I put it in my office? Do I put it in the kitchen? Do I put it in the dining room? I don't know where to put this thing. Now, you young people may have other ideas of where to put it, but in my house, it would be awkward to have a light that changes colors. I mean, it just really would be. The point is, this is an innovation. Somebody had an idea, created the idea, it was validated, people buy it. I don't think that as many people buy this as they do the ice cream, the Halo Top. So the point of that is, you know, innovations can be, we can turn the lights back up. Innovations can be validated to be a good product and it's making some money, but it still doesn't mean it's going to make a fortune, right? So if you guys figure out what you might do with the flux light, let me know. And you know, you might get one of these. And I bought it honestly because it was cool. I was kind of amazed with the fact that you could make a light change based on your app. You know, there's an app for everything, right? Let me switch gears here. So let's look at another one that this innovation really is one that is for the good of society. actually something that was innovative, had no purpose, really. There was no money to be made on this thing, but it got people to take the stairs instead of taking the escalator. So that is indeed a way to help humanity, by getting you to be more exercising and, exercise instead of taking the easy way. So that's kind of, so we've had the flux light, the ice cream, the flux light, the stairs. This is one. Now, how many of you have owned one of these? How many of you have owned all of them? The iPhone. Now, the iPhone, you can absolutely say, was like innovation on steroids, right? I mean, that was the big innovation of the 2000s. Everybody had to have one, So, but I want you to think about something. When you're innovating, there are byproducts. And sometimes what you're innovating about may end up not being the innovation in the first place. So here's an example of that. I was really into multimedia on this one, so I hope you bear with me.
You didn't do it in a tablet right away. You did it in the phone. What was the, did you consider doing a tablet when you did the iPhone, or was it just a natural progression? The iPhone came out, it was a big hit?
I'll actually tell you kind of a secret.
Okay.
Okay.
I actually started on the tablet first.
Really?
And I had this idea of being able to get rid of the keyboard, type on a multi-touch glass display. And I asked our folks, could we come up with a multi-touch display that we could type on, I could rest my hands on and actually type on. And about 6 months later, they called me in and showed me this prototype display. And it was amazing. And I gave it to one of our guys. This was in the early 90s. Early 2000s.
2000s, yeah.
And I gave it to one of our other really brilliant UI folks. And he called me back a few weeks later, and he had inertial scrolling working and a few other things. Now, we were thinking about building a phone at that time. And when I saw the rubber band, inertial scrolling, and a few of the other things, I thought, my God, we can build a phone out of this. And I put the tablet project on the shelf because the phone was more important. And we went and took the next several years and did the iPhone.
And then,
and when we got our wind back and thought we could take on something next, pulled the tablet off the shelf, took everything we learned from the phone, and went back to work on the tablet.
So how cool is that? That he wasn't even thinking about the iPhone at the time when he was building the tablet. And then when he saw the prototype for the tablet, it clicked in his head that he's like, wait a minute, this could be on a phone. So they went with the iPhone, and the rest is history. But shortly after that, we had the iPad, which was the original design in the first place. So I wanted to kind of set the stage with these types of innovations to get you thinking more creatively. Thinking about what does innovation look like and how it can be small, like a flux light, and can be large, like the iPhone. It can be for the good of humanity, like the stairs. It could be for the good of our taste buds, like the ice cream. So there's all kinds of innovation. So I want you to be thinking about that. Now let's think about innovation in education. This is where it gets a little tricky. And now this is going to be in my way now. Okay. And because I've gotten older, I do carry an outline with me. I used to not do that, but at 59, I know my memory can fail me sometimes. So it makes me feel good to be able to look down at it while I'm having a drink of water. When you look for innovation in education, especially when you're looking for innovation in online, you will find tons of websites that say innovation this, innovation that. I caution you when you're looking at those sites to not just automatically think something is innovative because somebody said it was, like I said earlier, You want to make sure that if you're going to practice or take on something that's innovative, that it has been validated by other people and not just the person that says it's validated. So let's think about this. Who knows what this is besides Wall-E from the movie? Doesn't it look like Wall-E? Who knows what it is? An old projector? Bingo, give this man a gold star. This was in the bowling alley, okay? When it used to, you used to write down on like a screen, and it would project the scores up on a screen somewhere so that you could see the scores. It was definitely something phenomenal. And it took us until the 60s to bring it into the classroom. The overhead projector is very much like the projector that you used in the bowling alley. Well, you guys didn't use it. There are some of us here that use that projector. And I don't know how you knew this, because there's no way you were in that bowling alley at the time. But it took us a long time to finally get the overhead projector. How many of you that are in my generation that are in this room, used the series? You had a whole set of transparencies that you had in a notebook, that you had a 3-hole punch to keep all your transparencies organized by lesson. Anybody else besides me? Okay. Do you still have them? Somewhere you've got them? You should keep those. That's history. Because, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, pass them down, and they'll say, wow, Grandma, Grandpa, what is this stuff? And why did they write on it? And how did they get the lettering on it? But this was sort of the start of educational technology. I mean, this is, and we still use the overhead projector, the document camera, or whatever you want to call it. We still use the theory of why we were going to project. But we started with something that came from the bowling alley, which I just think is pretty phenomenal.
When did they start using it?
I think in the 50s, and then it was in the 60s. And actually, if you look at the history, this is a really fascinating, the bowling history book. If you look at the bowling history book, it was never really thought about the way that we use the overhead projector. It was like, how do we get the scores so people can see them? And so that's when they came up with this. When we went to this model, it was, different ideas, but still projected the same way. And this was in the 60s. It's a history of ed tech. You can find it, and this picture came from North Carolina. But we've come a long way, with technology. We've probably come a little bit too far in some cases. I work with people all the time that are so into technology that they miss the point of the educational experience because they're so busy trying to use all the different technologies they can get their hands on that they're not really basing it on a strong curriculum. It's kind of like when you see somebody, or years ago, when you would see somebody use PowerPoint for the first time, and they used every transition. It was, it's wiping, it's dissolving, it's coming at you, it's scrolling. Every slide had a different transition, and we saw it in online learning in the way that, when we started doing online learning and we had courses, we were so worried about having just text that we got to where we had images and videos on every single page. And I'm like, honestly, you're teaching technical writing. It's okay to use text to demonstrate how to write for a technical document. You don't have to have a video to show that. So I think in our world of education, and in online education in particular, we have to allow ourselves to look at innovation, but pull it back into the theories of teaching and learning and why you're using that technology, and not just using technology for the sake of technology. And we all make that mistake. Technology is sexy, it's fun, it makes things more exciting, but you can overdo. Even your students can look at it and go, really, another video of you talking? I mean, honestly, the talking head is not necessarily the way to teach, nor is an animation necessarily the way to teach, nor are graphics necessarily the way to teach. The way you teach is by selecting the appropriate technology for the curriculum you want to present. Now, it's not a secret that I am anti-talking heads. There's one thing there's a couple of things. When I go see an institution, and in addition to working with the 15 schools at UT System, I've done a lot of consulting, and I've worked with dozens of other universities and colleges. You know, when I am looking at a course and I see an institution that has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars working with a provider, and this is not a Blackboard commercial, okay? This is Darcy talking as an online sort of expert. So when I look at these schools where they just have these videos of faculty just talking, and the company is charging thousands of dollars to produce those videos, and then the minute you need to change the curriculum, you have to pay them to produce yet another video. Or if something else crazy happens in the White House tomorrow, which it undoubtedly will, you have to change the video again. So when you're stuck in one delivery mode, you are asking for a lot of expense, a lot of resource expenditures, et cetera. So when we talk about technology and technology innovations, do yourself a favor and do not let yourself get wrapped up in the newest, sexiest thing that comes along. Make sure you're tying it back to your curriculum. The other thing to do, don't kid yourself that the only way those students are going to learn is if they see you. There is absolutely zero empirical evidence that that is true. Now, you may feel like that's the best way for your students to learn your material. That's okay. But don't try to tell me empirically that there is evidence that says that that's the best way. There are so many ways that you can deliver instruction beyond students teaching you. And there are actually ways to use technology to bring your voice to life in so many different ways besides a video of you standing there talking to your students. I'll get off my soapbox. Did I make my point? I know you don't like it, but that's why I'm here, because I can get on a plane and go somewhere else tomorrow. I want to spend just a minute about quality, because quality in online learning is something that we're lacking in the field. If you're trying to be innovative, you almost have to start with quality in the innovation. Just because you innovate doesn't, or just because you have a quality idea doesn't mean it's an innovation, and vice versa. But most innovations are going to have quality behind them. And let me tell you what I'm really worried about in our field around quality and innovation. Institutions, now your institution, those of you, how many of you are from RGV? Okay. This institution has an amazing organization. It is one of the best that I've seen, and I'm not saying that just because I'm here. I see a lot of schools. I go to schools where they have no instructional designers, zero. They have no resources for the faculty to build online courses. I go to schools where the faculty have absolutely no choice but to develop their own courses. And those institutions don't even provide support to help faculty understand how to design and teach a course online. Designing courses online and teaching courses online are different than designing and teaching face-to-face. The problem that we have is when we have schools that don't provide those services of instructional design support, pedagogical support, training. When they don't provide that, you know how faculty develop courses? It's not their fault. They develop courses to mimic the way they teach face-to-face. That is absolutely a poor way to utilize a learning management system. Faculty, and I tell presidents and provosts this all the time, if you're going to be in the online space, you need to put your money where your mouth is. You need to support your faculty so that they can be the best they can be in teaching online courses. Now, I mentioned that you have COLT. COLT is by far one of the better organizations that I've seen. And that's, you know, that's a nod. And again, I'm not saying that because I'm here. I mean, honestly, you've got instructional designers, you've got support that can help you make your courses really good and help you design them. Now, just like any other campus that I've been to, I've never been to a campus where it is mandated that faculty must work with the distance learning organization instructional designers. This campus is no different. There's no requirement that faculty use the services of an organization like Colt. Shame on you if you're not. You have access to instructional designers. You know, I have faculty across this country that are like, if I could just have a little bit of help, I know I could make my courses better. You guys should be beating down the doors at the Colt organization and say, give me a designer, give me somebody to work with, because you are faculty, you are subject matter experts. You are not experts at teaching online. Some of you have been doing it a while and have become experts. But for the vast majority of faculty, you're focused on your teaching, your research, whatever it is. You shouldn't have to worry about, how do I take this content and make it a good course online? And for those of you that are using the LMS as a repository, you know, where you're storing your Word documents and you're storing your PowerPoint documents and you're storing your PDF files and you think that's a course, it is not a course. It is a repository. And it is silly for the institution to spend the kind of money they're spending on Blackboard or any other LMS, and that's what you're using it for. So if that's what you're doing, I hope that after I'm done, I will guilt you enough into calling the Colt office and saying, I'm ready, I need some help. Because those designers are there. You know, and this is something that, you know, I often talk to faculty about. Faculty want to control their destiny, and I get that. And you're not used to letting somebody else into your world, because that's not how you do it. That's not how faculty operate. I was a faculty member once. I know how that is. You know, it's my thing. Get out of my classroom. Get out of my online course. I will teach this. You know, academic freedom, I'm going to teach this the way I want to. What you're not realizing is that your academic freedom speech may be keeping you from looking good in an online course. So take advantage of it, because you are not going to have quality if you don't understand what you're doing. And teaching online, you know, for goodness sakes, you're on the internet. You don't have to live inside the box of the LMS. There are other things you can bring into the course. You can bring in guest speakers. You can use wikis. You can use blogs. There's so many things that you could do if you just had somebody helping guide you and take your curriculum and help you bring it to life. Is that fair enough? Any disagreement? Anybody who's willing to disagree? I've been doing this a long time. You know, I was in distance education in the late 80s. I started in correspondence, I went to video conferencing, then went to online in the mid 90s. I have seen, it's kind of like the farmer's insurance commercial. What is it? I know a few things because I've seen a few things. I have seen some really, really bad stuff. I have seen things that make my skin crawl, because I know what good online learning looks like. So for me to stand here and tell you, you need to take advantage of the organization that you have on this campus that people would kill for is no exaggeration. You know, you've got to use it. So, okay, I'm going to dip a little bit into some real meat, which some of you I think have been waiting for. Give me something I can take with me. Don't just preach at me. So the ideas for next generation pedagogy. This was a project of the UOC, which is the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya in Spain, outside of Barcelona. I actually spoke at a conference in Barcelona where these folks were the sponsors. Just coincidence that I picked up this particular document. This is a great study. If you are into pedagogy and you are into online learning, this is a great one to look at. They basically they looked at courses, they did focus groups, they talked to faculty, they talked to administrators, they looked inside of courses, and they came up with some ideas for the future, some innovative ideas on how to design, how to apply pedagogy, in online courses. I'm going to give you another slide so you don't have to worry if you haven't written all this down yet. And it's easy to remember, right? Intelligent pedagogy, distributed pedagogy, engaging pedagogy, agile pedagogy, and situated pedagogy. Let me give you a little information about each one. kind of summarize these. So intelligent pedagogy, and again, thinking about online, this could also apply to face-to-face, but thinking about online. How many of you are using learning analytics? Okay. Well, let's talk about that. So, how many of you are familiar with learning analytics? A little bit? Okay. So let's take the example of Amazon. When you're on Amazon and you order something, how many of you then get the thing, the notice that says, people like you also ordered this? My friend Mark Milliron talks about this a lot. So you're given, they're running tons of analytics behind the scene. When you pick that particular ice cream scooper, I don't know, I'm on an ice cream kick. This, you buy this ice cream scooper. They're looking at your background, they're looking at other things you've bought, they're looking at what other people have bought that are like you, and then they come up with, bam, you may also like yada, yada, yada. And they're planting the seed so that you'll maybe buy something else, right? Learning analytics is very similar. Learning analytics is taking the aggregate of the students, looking at their backgrounds, the things that are in your student information system, the things that are in your LMS, and they're looking at trends and predicting how well a particular student is going to do. It's not absolute, but it gives you ideas. So you could have a group of students in a class. Let's say you've got 50 students in a class, and in that class you have you don't know this necessarily, but you've got a group of students that came from Hidalgo High School, and they're all 18, and they all have a specific economic background, and they have X and Y and Z in common. Comparing that to other students using learning analytics, it can come back and tell you these students are going to have a problem at this point. Other students like them have had problems at lesson 4. Other students like them have had problems with lesson 8. If you are the student, it's amazing because it can tell me, students like you, same high school, same background, same GPA, et cetera, have trouble with lesson 2. So that tells me I better pay attention to lesson 2. Now, I'm simplifying learning analytics extremely, but intelligent pedagogy is taking advantage of those analytics. If you're inside Blackboard Learn right now, you can have access to, we run some analytics. What do they have here? Do you know? They have A4L? Okay, so you may be adding that. But having those kinds of services, those kinds of data available can help you as faculty as well as help your students. It's also helping you in making sure your students have digital competencies, building that into your curriculum, and also looking beyond the LMS. Your pedagogy, your intelligent pedagogy is thinking about technology in a way that's beyond what's already right in front of you. It's thinking outside the box. What else could we do? What will make them digitally competent? What kind of technologies can I incorporate? Distributed pedagogies kind of made me chuckle because distributed pedagogies, it's looking at anywhere from one extreme to the other. On one extreme, it's where institutions, universities, colleges are collaborating and working together to develop courses, and GASP, universities that are developing programs. There was this organization that went away in 2010 called the UT Telecampus, that the sole purpose of the telecampus was to build collaborative programs across the system. They didn't mention us in this study. They did mention BC Campus, which also does the same thing the telecampus did and is modeled after the telecampus. So I did feel kind of good about that. But this is nothing new. Reaching out to other schools in the UT system or even outside the UT system to collaborate on degrees. When we built the telecampus, we did this distributed model of building degree programs because we wanted to have the cream of the crop from each campus involved in particular degree programs. So for example, we had a master's degree in kinesiology. That master's degree in kinesiology involves 6 University of Texas schools. Now out of those University of Texas schools, 4 of them actually were authorized to confer the degree. You know, kinesiology is the art of movement, right? And you have a lot of coaches that take kinesiology programs. So we had 4 campuses that offered the degree, and then we had 2 campuses that offered courses that could be part of the degree. So this was a 6-campus collaboration. And we also had some of the courses that were collaboratively designed across multiple campuses. That is the extreme end of distributed pedagogy and the most difficult. By the way, the reason why that one worked so well is because all those faculty, guess what they used to be before they were faculty? Coaches. What do coaches do? Coaches build teams. So getting them to work together, easy breezy. Completely different story when we worked with engineering. No offense to any engineering faculty. The other thing about distributed pedagogy is the other extreme is when you are distributing the learning experience. So you've got the faculty, you've got an assessment expert, you've got an instructional designer, you've got a multimedia person. So you're distributing the roles of one course development, which is often resisted by faculty, but it's really a great way to develop courses. The interesting thing about that is distributed learning. How many of you have ever heard that term? No? So shortly after online learning took off, distributed learning was a term that was put in place by a guy named Chris Deedy. And Chris Deedy is at Harvard now, but he was at George Washington University when he coined that term. And the idea was, you know, to distribute among the people who are most experienced and are experts in a particular area to build a course. Faculty or SMEs, subject matter experts, you've got assessment experts that can help with that, and so on and so forth. So distributed pedagogy isn't new, but it's something that is thought of as a way to be innovative in the future. Engaging, that one's pretty easy. Engaging pedagogy means it's active learning. It's less focus on the teaching, more focus on the learning. Really getting the students involved, getting them involved in working with each other, peer learning, and then also it means giving the faculty enough information so they understand how to enhance their learning with engaging activities. And this is where you're going to see things like gamification and so forth. Gamification, you know, again, you guys have people on this campus that understand how to build games. The vast majority of institutions do not have people that can do that. If you want to do some gaming, then you need to be talking to the cult organization about the people that have expertise. Doesn't mean you're going to build a game. And by the way, you know, gamification is a wonderful thing. I think it's fabulous. But the time and the money, the resources have to go into a really solid design. You need to really think about how many students does this serve? Because from an economical standpoint, you want to make sure you're spending money on something that will serve lots of students in those kinds of programs. Agile pedagogies, these are personalized, they're flexible. They are also looking at prior learning assessments, you know, prior learning experiences. It's being able to pivot, I hate that word, but being able to pivot within the design of the instruction. It's a more constructivist approach, if that rings a bell with people. It also is widening the participation. By widening the participation in higher ed, it's including the adult learner. It's including the student who is really on campus looking for a job. It's widening the participation. That's how you become agile in your pedagogy. And of course, mobile. And then situated pedagogies is where you're contextualizing. And that means bringing in real world experiences into your courses. I remember when I was at UT Austin, I was on Austin campus for about 8 years, and we always got accused of, you know, living in the ivory tower. You know, you have a lot of faculty who are researchers who haven't been in the workforce in who knows how long, and they're not able to give current examples of how the workplace operates. And that's, you know, that's UT Austin. Austin it's a research institution. They are concerned about, I was going to say they're not concerned about teaching. They are concerned about teaching, but they are as concerned about research as they are about teaching. Let me give you an example of a good experience with textualized learning. When I spent 3 years with the Obama administration. In between when I left San Antonio, and I retired. I retired at the end of 2013, hence the AARP. magazine. I retired at the end of 2013 from the UT system through UT San Antonio. But the 3 years before that, I was on loan from UT San Antonio to the Obama administration in Washington, and I had an apartment up there, and I would fly back and forth. And I was primarily working with the Department of Labor and the Department of Education and the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, which, by the way, doesn't even exist now because this administration doesn't see the need to have the Office of Science and Technology Policy. Stop there. But I was working on a $2 billion grant program that came out of Congress, and it was called the Trade Adjustment Assistance Community College and Career Training Grant. TACT. We called it TACT for short. TACT was a $2 billion program that came to the Department of Labor, which is why I was asked to come up and help them, because the grant required that any school who received grant money, and it was primarily community colleges, there were some universities, they would be designing 2-year programs that would be delivered using technology in some way and would be designed for people to complete them in 2 years if they chose to, and it was to increase workforce education and prepare people in the areas of manufacturing, energy, healthcare, et cetera. The idea was to do 2 things. One, it was to provide educational opportunities through these colleges for people to get out of poverty by giving them a skill that could be they could become an expert in 2 years, or it could be to increase their status in the workforce. So when I worked on that, we gave away $500 million a year that went out primarily to community colleges, but mostly, and in partnership with some universities. And they went to community colleges, of course, because community colleges are producing 2-year programs primarily. Most of our 4-year universities don't focus on 2-year opportunities. So these degrees, I mean, these grants of anywhere from $10 to $20 million went out the door to community colleges that were working in consortia. So it could be, let's say in Iowa, it could be all of the community colleges in Iowa went together on a proposal, they got a grant. There were 4 years of that. I worked on 2 years of it and actually helped write one of the solicitations. The terminology up there is very different. We would call it an RFP. They call it an SGA. It's a solicitation for grant application. So little things like that threw me all the time. But one of the grants that we gave went to Colorado, and it was the community colleges in Colorado. And their focus was on energy. And they were designing, in addition to having, they used a big chunk of money to build a mobile energy teaching van. And they tricked out this van to have all kinds of experimental things, inside of it, so they could go to rural parts of Colorado and let these students have hands-on, as opposed to equipping every single school with this high-end technology. But the thing that they did that I thought was one of the coolest things is they built their curriculum across these multiple colleges together for the gen ed. Their general education courses, their English, their history, their math, or so forth, and they built it in a contextualized fashion. So even their gen ed courses incorporated language, references to the field of energy. So it was pulled in so that these students who were there for that purpose of getting this degree related to energy, from the get-go, from the minute they started their courses with their gen ed, they were being introduced contextually to things related to the energy field. That's contextualization. Now, at a university, at a 4-year university, we're very proud of the fact that we are not just preparing people for a job or a career, we're preparing them to be good citizens, and a good liberal arts background is the way to do that. You have to really think about this as we move forward. I'm all for preparing students in a broad way. I'm all for a liberal arts education. But you can't rule out the fact that you've got students coming through your doors that are wanting and needing a specific job. We can't all be faculty. You know, one of my daughter's best friends, who was valedictorian at her high school and was valedictorian at St. Edward's University when she graduated, she's already got her master's, she's working on her doctorate right now. This gal got her degree at St. Edward's in women in German films. She's brilliant. She's actually in Germany right now finishing her dissertation. I used to kid her. I'm like, Mary, what are you going to be when you're done? Faculty member. I mean, what are you going to do with that degree other than teach other people about the value of German film and women in German film? These are good things. This is a good thing. This is great that she has studied this. And her parents are both faculty members, and she'll be a faculty member, and she'll be great. And she will impart her knowledge about film upon students who are interested in that. This is a good thing. But not every student is going to come through the university where she's going to be teaching wanting to understand that as opposed to spending their time learning a skill. Now, I'm not knocking anything. I'm just giving you a reality check that we have to think about why these students are coming in. And so contextualizing learning in the future and contextualized pedagogy where it makes sense is something we have to think about. It won't be easy, and those of you that have been teaching for a long time are going to resist it all the way in. You can do that with learning communities. Do all faculty use that? Okay. No, it's not mandated. Exactly. And how many of you know about learning communities? So that's my case. There are about 6 or 10 people that maybe know about learning communities. Take it upon yourself to find out more about that, because that's a way that you can contextualize the learning. I'm not saying you have to do it a certain way. I just think you need to think about it. All of these are pedagogies for you to think about. They are innovative ways to change the way you teach online. None of them are meant to be absolute. I'm not saying you have to implement all of these. I'm trying to give you something to think about when you're designing and teaching your online courses. Okay, what does it take to be an innovator? What is an innovator? It's a person who introduces new methods, ideas, or products. I would add to that are validated. It doesn't mean that just because you put it out there, it's an innovation. You can call it that all you want, but it doesn't mean it is. An innovator is one who is putting ideas out there, who is given good thought to new ideas, new ways to do things. Now, as a faculty, I think there are 4 things, each of two of them are related, that can make you an innovator. And if you don't have these 4 things, I think it's very difficult to be an innovator at a university or a college. The first one is obvious, the willingness to try. It ties with unafraid of risk. I know when we started in online learning, we had plenty of people that were afraid to do it because they didn't want to look bad, they weren't sure they understood the technology. No one wants to look silly or unprepared in front of the learners, even if it's online. You don't want them to sense that you don't know what you're doing. So if you're going to be innovative, you have to be willing to try and be willing to put that risk at the door and jump in. The other 2 are extremely critical, and you may not be able to control them. You have to be encouraged by your environment. You have to have a university or a college or a dean or a chair that's encouraging you to try something new. They want you to try. They want you to put something else out there, do something different. There's encouragement from the top down, and combined with that is permission to fail. And that's probably the hardest one for schools, for universities, for colleges, for deans to accept that, yeah, you're going to let this faculty member go out on a limb and try something new in their course and understand that if it doesn't work, it's okay. You can tweak it and try again. So these things contribute to being that innovator. And then sometimes people ask, can you teach innovation? Now, I don't have time to go into each one of these in detail, but I'll be happy to give you the slides, or you can look at Tom Markham's blog post about 10 ways to teach innovation. These are all ideas that you can incorporate into your courses right now. Some of them easier than others, some of them more effective than others. But those are things that tomorrow you could look at your curriculum in your course and make some changes and be innovative, because all of these things have been proven, validated to work well. So with that, let me close with one more thing. And who can see what this is? It's a little Macintosh. Who knows what it's part of? Where did I get this? How many of you have daughters? How many of you have daughters that have either been 8 years old or near 8 years old? Or how many of you have heard of the American Girl doll? Oh, yes. How many of you have spent a lot of money on the American Girl doll? I spent so much money. I mean, granted, my daughters are 30 and 31, but when they were 8 years old, my mother had always said, when you're 8 years old, you can get I'll get you an American Girl doll. And my mother passed away the year before my daughters were 8 and 7. So, of course, it fell on me because Gamma wasn't there to buy it. So they each got an American Girl doll. And one of them had Addie, and one of them had the girl that looked like her. But over the next 3 or 4 years, we started adding the accessories, lots of accessories. Talk about an innovation, one that made a lot of money. The American Girl doll phenomenon is one of those that did that. But one of the things that we got, I had to get, because I had a Macintosh. I still have my Mac Plus, by the way. I'm going to turn it into an aquarium one of these days. But I had to get this, right? We had to have the Macintosh. And when the battery's in it, it does make a noise and so forth. But if you look at this on the top, there is somebody signed it for me. Any idea who that might be? Steve Wozniak signed it for me. I was at for those of you young ones, Steve Wozniak invented this, okay? He is the guy. Steve Jobs invented the case. He invented the computer. There's a whole history of those two, the split of the relationship. But I was invited to a dinner party with 12 other people in 1997 at someone's house, a faculty member's house in Austin from UT. And he knew Steve Wozniak, and so Steve Wozniak was there. And of course, we're all like, we have doctorates in instructional technology and education. We're like, oh my God, it's Steve Wozniak. And I'm just like, so before we went, I pulled this out and I brought it, and he signed it, Woz. So let me leave you with this. I think he makes a really good point of, if you're going to innovate, why you have to do it. Why you innovate is really important.
Hello there.
Hello?
Hi, I'm wondering what are some of the things that we can do in our daily lives to cultivate innovation? So what can we do every day?
Think about your reasons for doing things. Are you trying to do some good for the world? Are you trying to help other people that need help? That should be your first motivation. And then you should also, in your innovation, your projects, let's say that you can write programs or build things, do a lot of them for fun that are just fancy games or tricks that you can show your friends and develop the skills. If you do that long and long, you'll get so good at it, any idea you think of, you'll be sure you can get to a solution. And when you hit, that doesn't guarantee you're going to be super successful. Even if you do everything right, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a successful company in most people's terms. So define success as your own happiness. Yes, that has to be number one, because you can do everything right and not succeed, or you can just be lucky and the first time you try something, have a huge success. There's no formula. A lot of people might like to get up here and say, here is how you do it. I've done it a lot of times. I don't like structure anymore. I just like being yourself and thinking yourself out and try to make things as natural for human beings as possible.
So with that, I hope that you got some ideas and thoughts about how you can be innovative and what it means to be innovative. And I hope you will go to HEB and get some Halo Top ice cream as soon as you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darcy. Yeah, I stole your chair. Yeah, but before you sit down, I just want to give you a little something on behalf of the Colton UTRGV, a little present so you can have this.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your words. Yeah, we didn't have, I guess we don't have time for Q&A, so we have to be ready for the other. But before we leave, I also want to recognize Dr. Brown, again, to provide all the support to online education, and I have something for you too. So I will, yeah, a little recognition, and again, to be a support administrator for online learning. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I guess following the program, we got breakout sessions this afternoon, a couple of breakout sessions, and then again, we're going to reconvene and come back to this room so we can present the awards to faculty and recognition to those of you who are presenters on the conference. So enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll see you later this afternoon.